Franchisees first. That sounds great on paper, but it can actually drive growth. Now, in this episode, we're going to dig deep into the real world application of putting franchisees at the center of your business model and why it might just be the smartest long-term strategy for scaling. Now, please keep in mind, this is perfect for you, whether you're an entrepreneur, a small business, or anybody interested in business growth.
Welcome to Fordify Live with your host, Ford Saeks.
Joining me today is our special guest, Steve White. He's the president and COO of PuroClean, a franchise system with over 500 locations across North America. Now, Steve's leadership style is simple, but really powerful. Franchise partners come first, and he's been in franchising for 39 years and counting. I think he started when he was 7. So, Steve, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Ford.
So, we were talking in the green room and you said, well, what are we going to talk about? And I said, well, tell the story. How did you get into franchising to begin with? And then how did you get to the role you're in now?
Yeah. Went to college on an Army scholarship. On graduation day, I owed the Army the next 4 years of my life. I did 6 years. I was a pretty hotshot young Army officer, but the corporate recruiters come calling and I got out to start my business career. And of all places in the world, within 30 days, I had an offer to start in the headquarters of Domino's Pizza in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And that was 39 and a half years ago. And that's how I got started in franchise.
Well, okay, so that was a start, but tell our listeners, for those people that might not know what PuroClean is, what's your basic motto for PuroClean? Who's your ideal customer and what does PuroClean do?
Well, PuroClean is a property restoration company. So bad things happen to people where they work and where they live every day. Water, fire, mold damage, and they often can't work or live there again until we come and clean it up. So that's what PuroClean does. We come and clean those things up. We turn chaos back into order, unlivable spaces back into livable spaces, business places that can't be used back in business. That's what we do every day. Our tagline is the paramedics of property damage. And that's what we do. When you have a problem with your property, we roll a truck and a crew. We come to you, we take care of it.
Well, full disclosure, I knew what Steve did because he was kind enough to invite me in as an opening keynote speaker for their annual conference. And I said, well, you'd be a great guest because I always like guests that really take care of the franchisees. And that was kind of what the show teaser was about, like putting your franchisees first. So, leading nearly 500 locations now, how do you stay connected to the franchisees so they don't get lost as you scale?
Ooh, good question. How many people ask me that question? I like that question. How do we stay close to the franchisees? Well, look, whether you're big or small, it all begins with listening. Don't get so big that you stop listening to your franchise. They're heavily invested in this business. Many of them have everything they have in this world invested in this business. It's got to go well for them. Failure is not an option. So you need to listen to what's on their heart. When I first came here to PuroClean, it was a turnaround situation, and they were not happy. Today, they're way happier. We get for how happy they are, but we keep getting those awards because we keep listening. We're never done listening. My executive team met yesterday. We were talking about listening at a new level. Our franchisees are very happy, very successful today, but there's always something on their mind, and we got to be tuned into this. And so that's where it starts. Listen to what's on their heart, talking to them about it, having a dialogue. I would say do franchisee with your franchisees, not to your franchisees.
Yeah, that's really some sound advice. I know that, in my work in franchising, not 39 years, 34 years for me, I'll be behind you. We know the biggest challenges in franchising. The franchisor wants our franchisees to take personal accountability for their own success and use their systems and tools. And the franchisee says, look, I invested all this money. Why aren't you driving more business? And so it's that giving them the tools, but because they're an independent franchise owner, they have to take personal accountability and execute, at the local level. And that's what I like about franchising is I'm able to go in with brands. I can be in alignment with the brands, and helping them do that. And so, you know, what do you see? And you look at the landscape of growth right now in the industry, and now there's AI and there's all these other disruptions. What do you see are some of the things on the horizon that PuroClean is planning for to stay competitive in the marketplace?
I can't get to AI fast enough. There are requirements for documentation because in our business, we're largely an insurance pay business. So we have these giant insurance companies demanding tons of documentation. So it's the defense against any potential future lawsuits for them, really, to make sure that we do the job the right way. So we have to do all this documentation. So much of it is today is manual. So much of that manual process of documentation, I believe, could end up being a set of future AI routines.
Yeah, I think and you've been on, and your team has been on some of my master classes that I do, and I know even at your conference we had a little segment on that. We talked about how AI is affecting it at the layers level. Everybody listening to this with an earshot or watching the replay or in the live broadcast, AI is transforming the whole buyer experience. Anything that you're doing repetitively, AI is going to come in, and the technology is changing so quickly. What I tell people, the greatest risk with AI isn't isn't adopting it too soon. It's waiting too long and falling behind. A lot of people will say, well, I'm waiting for it to settle down. No, you need to start doing it now and building and going. Just know whatever solution you implement now, in 6 months, it's probably going to change your scale. So I know that brands like yours, big brands like yours, they're using AI internally for their internal processes. They're issuing tools that their franchisees can use. But then at the franchisee level, they need to learn the best practices of what they should and shouldn't do. And most importantly, keeping the human in the loop. At the end of the day, AI is a great resource. It's not a replacement for human experience, right?
No. Yeah, especially in our business, when people have something bad happen where they work or live, it's an emotional response, right? I've walked jobs with my franchise owners before where the homeowner's distraught about, all this stuff happened, this water damage happened in my house. My kids are going to be home from school in a few years, or excuse me, in a few hours. Where are they going to do their homework? How am I going to get them dinner? And I watch the franchisee make a plan with homeowner, and I watch the stress just drain out of homeowner space. AI can't do that for us. That's a human relationship thing. We still have to be there. But, there's other parts of our business, administrative documentation, marketing, that AI can help us a lot with and give us more time for even better relationships.
Can't cut through the online chaos? This episode is powered by Ignite Visibility, the nation's expert in ROI-driven digital marketing. We help over 90 leading franchise brands and 2,500 locations outrank competitors and convert more customers. Ready to stand out and grow? Claim your free digital marketing audit at ignitevisibility.com. Ignite your growth.
Yeah, I think that's really the key. Use AI to save you the redundant tasks and time. It is going to take jobs. It's also going to create jobs. But then that does give you more time for that personal experience. I've always said, as a keynote speaker, deals don't happen before dialogue. No one's bringing me in. They might watch my demo or watch a podcast or maybe a referral. But at the end of the day, they want to speak to me for that authenticity part, that depth of knowledge. And that's the same thing with PuroClean and franchisees or any business who's listening to this episode right now. Take a look at your customer experience. Now, if you're a franchisor, we're talking about putting your franchisees first. Now, obviously, the brands that do that, the brands that take care of their franchisee, that, like you said, that listen to their franchisee, that have feedback loops. Maybe you have a franchise advisory council. Maybe you do weekly calls, or you have a Slack channel or Teams channel, but you have some intranet that allows them to communicate. And most importantly, it doesn't mean that you're changing on a whim. I know, Steve, your style. I mean, just because the franchisee may want X, Y, and Z, that doesn't mean those are immediately implemented. You have a whole decision-making matrix that you're going to go through. But the fact they feel heard and appreciated, I think that's the same with we're not going to use the word employee with a franchisee, but any internal customer, they want to feel heard and listened to. What are some of the things that you do? I mean, do you have what are some of the things that your brand has implemented with your franchisees for that listening? I know it's important, but what are you actually doing to do it?
Yeah. On a formal basis, we survey them we do the big annual um, survey in partnership with Franchise Business Review.
Mhm.
And we do it late in the fall because our biggest advisory council meeting of the year is usually here in our offices in South Florida in late November, early December. Franchisees up north like coming here that time of year.
Of course.
And so we do the survey, the biggest survey of the year, immediately before that meeting. And then when we walk in and kick off that meeting, it is with those results in hand. Because franchise advisory councils are famous for having a couple of strong personalities dominate the whole thing, try and take it in their direction. Well, we kick off the meeting saying, we want to hear from all of you on the council. Your voice and your opinion is important to us. But we're going to start with the voice of the many. So here's the voice of the many as spoken to us through our franchise survey. And what I used to do, it's so effective. I used to have Franchise Business Review do a briefing for my executives the week before the advisory council met. The advisory council liked it so much that last year we started inviting them to the pre-brief. And so now they get briefed a week in advance. And now when we get to the in-person meeting, we're talking about, okay, tell us, first of all, we're still not done listening. First thing we got to say is, tell us what you meant by that. Because it's not always obvious, right? One year they rated technology really low. And my thinking was, what technology? We have dehumidifiers and air movers. They're all very low tech. And they said, no, not the hardware, the software. We're really frustrated with the software. Oh, I get that. Let's talk about what we can do about that. And we keep talking about it until we can boil it down to something that's actionable. And then we put that on an action log and we print it to the whole system. And I tell the advisory council, what I want for all the franchise owners who are not on the advisory council is for them to see on the action log things that were on their heart when they took the survey 2 months ago. And for that to come out, and that tells them that we're listening and we're acting on what we're listening. But then we survey them to death on everything. When I graduate a class of brand new franchisees, I would usually tell them, you're the product of the best class we've ever done. Because after every class, we interview you. We've already interviewed you guys. We interview you and we say, one of the questions we ask you is, what could we do to make it even better for the next class? Immediately implement those things. So you're a product of the best class we've ever done. But now that we've interviewed you, the very next class is going to be better than your class. And we will never rest making it better. Never, ever rest making it better.
Well, you're hearing it here first, everybody. I mean, any business that's successful listens to the marketplace. They listen to their team members. They listen to their franchise partners, their franchisees, their family, and they look for ways to improve it. And at the end of the day, it really does come down to communication. And the purpose of communication is the response it elicits. And so the more you're listening, the more you're in tune. And, one of my favorite things is a high-end consultant. When I work with a brand, I'll say, well, tell me more about that. Just like you said, they say technology, but tell me more about that. It's just like on leadership. Sometimes they'll bring me in for leadership and I have to have a conversation with their executive team because I'm like, is this a culture question? Leadership, team building, communication, change. I mean, there's a lot of different topics in there. What is it really? How does it manifest yourself? And then you start realizing, oh, they meant this. They meant leadership or management, but really it was their team communications. Their team didn't feel like they were connected or whatever. So it's really about listening. So what is some important lessons that you learned? I mean, all these years in franchising, working with multiple brands, you weren't just with PuroClean, of course. What are some of the lessons that you had to learn maybe the hard way? And again, for those listening to this episode, this also is the audio from this becomes the Business Growth Show podcast. And Steve does not know what I'm going to ask. And for the record, I don't know what I'm going to ask. So full disclosure on that. So what are some of the lessons that you kind of learned the hard way that you think, wow, I wish I would have known that before I stumbled?
Well, I just talked about how important it is to listen to your advisory council, right? They're elected by their peers. They're supposed to be there to do the greatest good for the whole system. Um, you cannot abdicate your leadership role and just go by a popularity poll of your advisory council, because at the end of the day, you have the responsibility to lead, and you're always going to be, or hopefully for a long time, you're going to be an executive in your company. They're going to be on your advisory council for a very short time, right? I was in a previous company where our annual profitability study, we call it an operating ratio study, was incredibly important to the franchisees. Very low margin business. You had to be super efficient. And that was really important. And the franchisees said, we want you to put as a caveat in our awards program that if you did not participate in this year's operating ratio study, you're not eligible for any awards in our system. And I said, I don't want to do that. You're all going to go off the council, and I'm going to be left to enforce that. I'm going to be the bad guy. They said, sucks to be you. You got to do it anyway.
That's funny.
I therefore also 1 year, I had the advisory council say, you should do the convention here, and it would be cool if you would take it here and
Right.
do it this time of year, and you'll get much better attendance. So I listened to the advisory council. I did that convention in that city, Vancouver, BC, which is one of my favorite cities in the world. And I did it the time of year they told me to do it. And we got less participation than we typically did. And afterwards, I went back to the advisory council and they said, I don't understand. I did everything you guys told me to, and I got less participation instead of more. And they said, you screwed up. You listened to us.
You know,
So at the end of the day, you have the leadership impair. Don't abandon it.
yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, in my years, the more I've learned, the more I know I don't know, but I'm really opinionated on certain things. And, in marketing, people will say, like, I'll do sales training and I'll talk to the advisors and they'll say, well, we've tried that. That didn't work. And I'm like, okay, tell me exactly what you did. We called everybody and they all said no. I said, okay, give me the call logs. They called like 3 people, like the sampling of what they think is everybody and all these wide brush decisions. So I think that's really important for leaders to understand. You want to get the feedback, but you still have to remain open-minded and critical thinking. And critical thinking is a skill that I think has gotten lost in certain certain not demographics, but certain age groups or something. Because critical thinking means you're listening to both sides, and then you're making a decision based on what you're hearing. And I think as a leader, I know for me, I had to be careful of, you want to listen, but you can't just placate and give everybody what they want. You also have to adjust it to what are the conditions of satisfaction. So what I like is, what does success look like? What are the conditions of satisfaction? And what are the MTNOs? What's the minimum, target, and optimal? And in that way, it allows us to have a conversation around a topic without it becoming an opinion or a popularity contest. You know what I mean? All right. So what's really exciting for PuroClean going forward as you think about the growth? I mean, your guys are growing, with 500 units. You're definitely one of the leaders in the industry. What do you see on the horizon? Now, I asked the horizon about the challenges, but like, what do you see for the growth? Are you guys going to grow? Or are you trying to, stabilize, or what do you feel is your initiatives for next year?
I think we have a lot more growth in front of us. We have, there are companies in our industry that are more than twice the size that we are. And so we believe that we have tremendous amount of growth opportunity in terms of adding locations. But that has not been my first priority. I've been leading the PuroClean brand for 12 years next month. And that has never been the top priority. Top priority was grow the ones you got.
Yeah.
Second priority is the profitability of the ones you got, because if they ain't profitable, they're not going to be around very long. The third priority was the satisfaction of the ones we got. And then fourth priority is to add reasonably to their number. So I'm proud to say that we have more than 2 times as many locations as when I came, but we will finish this year with pretty close to 6 times the system-wide sales from when I came. And that comes obviously do the quick math. We've done the most amount of growth by growing the ones that we got. And we will never abandon that. We got to keep growing. And we're at a stage now where we're a mature franchise brand. We've been alive in the franchise world as PuroClean for 24 years. And we have people at all stages. We have people to the brand new. We have people getting ready to retire at every stage in the band. You have people on the ascendancy. You have people at their zenith. You have people everywhere in there. And really the answer for us is on how do you grow it? It's not a one size fits all solution. You have to intimately each franchisee and where they stand today and have a plan to help them get the right next level for that franchisee. And so they all move at a different pace. They all come completely differently equipped. Right. As I say, again, back to my graduating classes, I say, there's several people here in the room that have declared that they're going to be the rookie of the year. Okay? You're one of like 7 classes we're doing this year, but you're all convinced you're going to be the rookie of the year. Well, I can't predict. You all get the same support. You all get the same systems. You all essentially have the same track to run on, but you all come to it with different person, a different ability to build relationships in the marketplace, a different level of personal aggressiveness, amount of capital to invest. All those things are huge difference makers in how successful you'll be. So the best thing for us to do is come alongside of you, figure out what's next for you. As you go away, if you travel home from, being trained in our business, I want you to write down, what are your goals in the next 1, 3, 5 years? And then when your field support guy, regional directors, when your regional director comes to meet with you, I want you to tell them, these are my goals. Because the more clearly you know your goals, the better we are at bringing the right resources alongside of you to achieve those goals. Conversely, if you have no idea what you want to accomplish, we have no idea how to help you. I mean, we got some, but it's going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. So engage with us, stay close to us, and we will guide you to the right kind of growth for you. And when we do that, everybody wins.
Yeah, I think that's sage advice in any business. I am Jeep Rubicon, and my license plate is Think Big, THINKBG. And now as an entrepreneur my entire life, I've had 17 companies. I've always been think big, think big. And then a few years ago, I was in an EO meeting. And I'm like, you know what? I look at my goals every year and every quarter, and we do our EO forum meetings, and we evaluate, and we really get raw with what's working, what's not, and we cover things like turnover and growth and capital, and mergers and all these different things. And I started thinking about this, and I started thinking, okay, when have I been really successful? I was thinking big, but it was when I was thinking small too. So now, even on my phone, wherever my phone is, it's right here. So now, even on my phone, my screensaver is think big, think small, take action, right? Because I want to think big. I want to have a good vision, but then I got to break it down. Okay. What am I going to do on a Wednesday morning? Like, what am I going to do specifically, tactically? And then I got to take action, because all the planning in the world is great. I mean, you can have an Orange City membership, but if I don't go, and I guess it's a little too personal to home, because I didn't go this morning, right? Because my computer messed up and I had to reload everything, and I had excuses, right? You can either produce a result or produce an excuse. So I produced an excuse on that one, didn't go. I guess I can go tonight. But it was like, I just have to take personal accountability. So now everything in my life, and what I encourage my team and the people I consult with do are, take personal accountability for where you are. Everything you've done up to this point, every decision you made or every decision you didn't make is where you're at. So yes, I know I get bad things in the comments. You don't know what happened to me in my market, and my competitor opened up across the street. Focus on what you can control. There's business out there. Yes, there's competition, but that means there's just more awareness of what you do. And if you're out there in the marketplace and you're visible and you're building relationships and you're networking and you're taking care of the customers, just like you taking care of the franchisees, the franchisees are taking care of their customers, they'll get repeat business, they'll get referrals. All the market in the world won't overcome a bad customer experience, right? So it starts with delivering a good product and service and building up from there. I mean, I've worked with, so many franchise brands, as you know. I get to go work with their brands and their executive team, and I mystery shop before the event. I call them the heroes. I don't call them the zeros, but the heroes and the ones that are struggling. And it's interesting to the narrative of the ones that are struggling. They're always talking about the external forces. They're always talking about what the franchise isn't doing that they could do. And they're not really I'm not saying there isn't things that they should do. Like, I'm not ignoring that. I'm just saying, focus on what you can control. So those of you listening to here, and we're wrapping up here soon, what can you do today to reach whatever goal you have? Now, we're talking about business growth and taking care of your business and your customers. But, if there's something in your life that you want, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. In 100 years, we're all going to be bug dirt anyway. What difference does it make? So what can we do? What can we do to build relationships and take care of people? And especially with AI, I think that the real currency, and before we jump, I want to lean into this for a minute. I think the real currency going forward is going to be those personal relationships. I really think, and again, I speak on AI and doing keynotes and everything on AI, but it's not, I'm like, keep the human in the loop. Like, don't you agree? I just think that if companies that abandon that are going to be left behind.
I mentioned these giant insurance carriers that we do a lot of work for. Some of them have these incredibly sophisticated algorithms that determine who gets how many assignments from them. I have not met a person on their staff who can explain any of those algorithms to me, but I do know that I have meetings with them, and the relationships are incredibly important. When you have somebody off a meeting and say, look, I don't know what's going on with this brand PuroClean. All I know is that when we give them assignments, we have less follow-up to do and less questioning to do than any other partner. They make my department more efficient because of whatever it is that they're doing out there with their tagline, relentless customer service. That moves the needle for us. That gets us more assignments. It's got to do with the relationships. It's got to do with listening to those guys. We did a big formal review with one of these insurance companies, and I came out of their headquarters, and I took my iPhone, and I spotted it in a selfie stick, and I held it up. We did a 1-minute highlights. Here's what just came out of this meeting. Here's what happened. And on the way to the airport, I sent it to my VP of marketing, Alex Paricci, who by the end of the day had it edited, formatted up, and sent to all the franchisees. Then we get home and we go into the studio, we do a 6 or 7 minute video. 6 months later, we go back for another review, and the company said, we told you in our meeting 6 months ago that we wanted you to we have an emphasis this year on cleaning.
Right.
When you're done with a job, clean, we'll pay you to clean. If you get a call back for something else, clean again, we'll pay you to clean again. I said, yeah. They said, what did you do? I said, we did that. Why? They said, we have 6 national partners. You're the only one that did it. What did you do? I said, I shot this 1-minute selfie on the sidewalk out in front of your headquarters. I went back and did the studio version, 6 or 7 minutes long, sent it to my franchisees, and they listened and they did it. I listened to you. They listened to me. That's why we cleaned.
Isn't that
the only one that did it?
Yeah, and it's so true. It's just like if I do a high-end event and I charge a lot of money for like a business growth summit where I bring people together for 4 days, and there'll be 5 to 10% of the people that really execute that just kill it. And these are people that might not have had any skill level in that area. In other words, I think a lot of times people want to make it more complicated. You didn't make it complicated. You went outside, you took the video, and then you went and did another video. And again, it's communication. That, done is more profitable than perfect. Yes, we want quality. We're not talking about not doing quality, but done is more profitable than perfect. I was just on that with a consulting client this morning, a very big expert in the team building space. And he was like, well, do I need a professional this? And I said, look, you want brand standards. You want a good microphone. People forgive poor video, just not poor audio. But you being authentic like that, walking out and saying, hey guys, here's an initiative. We need to do this. That gets it to market faster. Speed to communicate is what moves the needle. And I just want to thank you for doing this. Any closing thoughts you have for our listeners today?
Well, I could go on and on and on, but I won't. But I will say that you spoke at my convention 2 months ago, and you lit us up. You did a terrific job. So if anybody's thinking about Ford, give me a call. I'll tell you all about it. It was really good. I have 2 private investors that own this company. They're admittedly low tech guys.
Right.
And they were very excited. One in particular grabbed the microphone and kept asking you questions.
Yep.
He tells me in the 2 months since you spoke at our event, he tells me that he has been on Perplexity every single day since then.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that.
I, in turn, tell my executives, don't fall behind him. Just you better get cracking. Come on, let's get on this. The first thing he did was he took a picture of his 92-year-old dad, pushed it through a Perplexity, and his dad came out buff and in a Superman costume.
Yep. Isn't that cool? Here's something new. Since we're doing this, I'll bring this into the show. Perplexity has a brand new browser. For everybody listening, this is not a promotion. We don't get an affiliate sale for this. But go to perplexity.ai/download-comet, COMET, like the comet, right? And it's a browser. Now, I'm just starting to play with it. So full disclosure, do this at your own risk, everybody. This show and all episodes are for educational, informational purposes only. We're not giving you legal advice. You cannot blame Steve, his company, or his assigns. You can blame me if you want. But Comet is a browser that opens up and it watches what's on your screen and you can interact with it. And I mean, it is blowing me away with what it can do. And it's just, it's a brand new browser. So I use Chrome because I like the Google products. But now I'm starting to use Comet as my default browser because of how it's making me more efficient in what it can do. So I know that ChatGPT came up with agent mode, although it's a little janky. It doesn't really work all the time. But this new Comet, I mean, it's just blowing me away. And you'll start hearing about it more. It's going to be all over the news, I'm sure. But tell him to go to perplexity.ai and download the new Comet browser, and he'll be the hero of the company. But thank you so much for joining me today, Steve.
Hey, Ford, thanks for having me. You did a great job at our conference, and I love logging on to your stuff. It's a little intimidating because you go fast and it's a lot, but hey, I'd rather that than you go too slow and it's too little. So I love it. I'm a little overwhelmed, I admit it. And then I get off and I start plowing through the follow-up.
Well, I'm just glad, I like it. The keynotes are always a little slower when I'm in person, but when it's recorded and they can watch a replay, I always feel like you can always turn its speed down or speed up. Because I know for me, when I watch a lot of YouTube tutorials, sometimes I'm like, okay, this is too slow for me, but you do it. But anyway, I just want to tell you, thanks so much for tuning to Fordify Live, everybody. We were all about accelerating your business growth. Until next time, keep innovating, keep going, and keep fortifying your success. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you for tuning in to Fordify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.